Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. This is the show for coaches, speakers, and trainers who want to grow their businesses by making an impact in the world. And I'm your host, Simone Vincenzi, the co-founder of GTeX. Now, if you're new to the show, we are giving you different episodes each week, sometimes with a guest, like we have today, an incredible guest. Sometimes it's a solo episode, sharing a bit more the behind the scene of what we do, or sometimes it's a client that we interview to share some of the successes and celebrate them and understand how they reach the results that they got. Now, before we get started, a few more things. If you have not subscribed to the show, make sure you subscribe right now so you don't miss any other incredible episodes. As well as if you have not downloaded one of our free resources, make sure you do it as well. We have created the Expert Business Checklist, which is a checklist that helps you, make sense in the jungle that is navigating a business. So make sure you check it out so you can understand what are your priorities, and it's a checklist that helps you understand your priorities, where you might be wasting your time, what to focus on. So you can find the link in the show notes. Without any further ado, let's introduce our guest for today. I would like to introduce today Jerry Houston. He's an author of The Eccentric Entrepreneur. You're going to understand more about that in a moment. He's the founder and CEO of HPISolutions, an organization which is dedicated to enabling behavior change in individuals and teams so that people and organizations can realize their highest potential and maximize results. Today, we are going to talk about how you can dare to be different and build a business through mutual benefit, respect, and trust. Welcome to Jerry Houston. Jerry, how are you doing today?
Good, Vincenzi. How are you?
I am incredibly well. Definitely my foot is getting better after the crack, and I'm happy that I can, walk again. And so I appreciate my body. I appreciate it. So tell us, where are you from?
I'm from Chicago, Illinois originally, but I have lived now 20 years out in Phoenix, Arizona. And so we're enjoying the heat, which is up around 112 to 114 degrees Fahrenheit at this time of year.
I always throw a curveball question at the beginning to all my guests. And I want to ask you, what has been your favorite holiday that you ever had so far, and why?
Favorite holiday that I've had so far? Ever? I should say my birthday, right? That would be appropriate. No, I honestly, I really, really enjoy, the typical holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. I enjoy that time of the year. It's a time of gathering, with friends and family, and so it's something I look forward to every single year.
Is that family and connection or something important for you?
Well, my family's all over the country. So getting together are precious times when we get together, besides on Zoom, of course, which we do frequently, but we really enjoy when we can actually gather. That's a good time.
Well, and that leads me to the next question, which is, going into talking, we're going to talk about business. How is a connection important for business, and what has been your experience with that?
How is the connection to,
connection, like connecting with people, important for business?
That's a really important question, because a business is a family. It's a different kind of family, and in some businesses, of course, especially entrepreneurial businesses, there are actual blood-related family members in the business. We could talk about that in another show because it'll take up the whole show. But I have had wonderful long relationships with two of my partners, 21 years apiece. Long relationships with them in this business, and we care deeply about each other. It isn't just about making a living or serving our clients, which is very important. And another family that's been created, of course, is the relationship we have with clients. And, I was on the phone with a client yesterday who lost a person and wants to replace that person and we talked more about grandparenting than we did about business on that call. And that's the development of the relationships that are so important.
And that's also what I guess builds trust,
That's what
which is a big part of what you talk about also in your book, The Eccentric Entrepreneur. How did you get to write the book? Like, what's the story behind the book?
Well, I got right to it. I started the business in 1992, and I finally wrote the book 20 years later. So it took me a long time to get to it. But actually, I think it was good because I have all of this history. And the book is a legacy book. So it is a book in part about me, my life. How did a nice guy like me end up in a business like this? What caused that to happen? And just the whole idea that the business, if you love what you do, I know we're going to talk a lot about that today. If you love what you do, it isn't work. It's the business is a part of me. It's connected to me. And that's why even now, as I am well into my 70s, I'm still doing it because I love every day. Well, maybe not every day, maybe 4 out of 5 in a week, everybody's going to have a bad day, but really, truly, I just absolutely love what I do.
Have you ever thought about, let me shut down everything and retire? The thought of retirement in the traditional sense of retirement um, passed through your mind?
Yes. And we have an unwritten rule in our business that if you've just had it up to there, that you're allowed to quit. So I'm allowed to quit. I could retire for an hour and then I have to get back to work because our clients need us. So, so there you are. But no, I don't like the R word very much. I live in an active adult community. Some people call it a retirement community. No. Active adult. That's the people I want to hang out with.
Well, I'm asked because there are a lot of people like that they reach a certain age, and then you say, you know what, I just want to keep going. I want to stop. But the majority of people that I know that there are entrepreneur, the idea of retirement is not even a concept a lot of time for them, because there is nothing to retire from. It's like, I'm retired for something that I love and enjoy. Why should I stop doing that?
Exactly right. Why would you remove that from your life? Now, maybe I'm more flexible with my time these days than I was when I first started in the business, but I had greater financial needs then than I do now. So things change, right? And when circumstances change, we need to adjust to the circumstances that we're in. So it's just a lot of fun to hang around with people you have a lot of respect for, that are really professionals and that deliver. And it's true of all of our partners, from the newest one to the one that's been here the longest. They deliver what we promised the first time, every single time. And that's so important. It makes me look good, frankly.
Well, you know what it is, and I think is also a message for like all the younger entrepreneurs that are listening to the show, to have something to aim for. Because I know that I have some people, and I think we all make our personal judgments of, when I grow older or when I grow up, I want to be like that, or I don't want to be like that. And we all need role models. And I think that definitely, like, the career that you have is an inspiration for people to say, you know what, how arriving at 70 and actually keep doing something that you absolutely love and being incredibly loved and respected by, because I had the pleasure to also meet some of your team members in your business, which not many people might have to. And everyone is like speaking incredibly high of you. And I think is an inspiration for a lot of people that are listening here.
Well, and we have our youngest partner is in her 30s, and our senior partner is 76. eldest partner, I should say, is 76. And so that's quite a spread. And that's another part that adds richness. Just having gotten to know you, Simone, you're young, you're energetic. So I broke my foot playing basketball. So what? Up and at 'em, right? You just have this energy that I love being around people who have that kind of energy. And sadly, some senior people lose that energy, especially when they lose focus in their lives as to what now. Now I'm retired. Now what? Now what? Am I doing something meaningful in my life, or am I not doing something meaningful in my life? And they're looking for things to do, play golf 4 times a week or something, right?
I know that you are like one of your passion is that's also the work that that you do in organization to enhancing human potential, to make sure that people that organizations they get the most out of the people, and people get the most out of the organization is a big part of what you're doing and that you're passionate about. From your own perspective in your business, I'm just curious, having this diversity, you mentioned the age gap between the eldest partner and the youngest partner. What does that bring to the business? What value does that bring to the business?
Well, it brings a deeper level of understanding of other people when we're working with people. And it isn't just generational issues can be very significant in organizations, as we both know. And also the diversity that comes from having partners that are African American, that are women, that are men, that are Eva Skovdal, my partner from the hinterland up there, is is another example. He brings such a level of knowledge of the world, and all of that adds up to a richness in the culture of the company that we've even still allowed one person from Chicago to stay in our business. I mean, we welcome everyone to this business, and our partners are everywhere. They're everywhere. They're in Japan, they're in Singapore, they're in the United States. They're all over the place. And think of we just wrote a new module in partnership with a group that we work with called Diversity and Inclusion. Diversity is being invited to the dance. Inclusion's being asked to dance. And so we're trying to help people understand those two dynamics.
Okay, so say it again. Repeat that again.
Diversity is being invited to the dance. So it's okay for you to come to my dance. But inclusion says, I want to dance with you. I want to be engaged with you.
I never heard it explained in this way. That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful.
I stole that, so I won't take credit for that slogan. But isn't it true though? When you think about it, that's what we all strive for: is that everybody is viewed on their merits and on their character, right?
Yeah,
that's what's really important, not how tall or short.
I was actually going to ask something about diversity and inclusion right now, which I'm glad you started this, because it was going to be the next question that popped up in my head. You work a lot with teams, and the part of the team dynamic and what each individual team members is able to bring to the table to create something magical within the organization. When does diversity and inclusion becomes like a checkbox exercise? Because now that is mainstream and is part of the agenda. Everyone is talking about diversity and inclusion, so we need to have someone who is like a disabled, and someone who is Black, someone who is Chinese, and sometimes it just becomes a checkbox exercise for the company. When does it not become like that? What does it need to happen within the organization for actually making sure that every individual feels valued in there?
I'm going to say something and you're going to agree with it right away, because I've gotten to know you enough now to understand your character a bit, and because you invite everybody from everywhere to participate with you at some level or another.
Yeah.
It's all about ownership. Until a person owns their responsibility in diversity and inclusion, and they really believe it in their heart, it's not going to happen. Then it is a checkbox. And the company says, okay, did the diversity inclusion class, let's move on to dealing with negative behavior or something. Let's move on to something else, or laws related to compliance and HR. Let's check that box off and let's keep moving. And good organizations, they want to embrace talent and character and attitude. We hire people, think about this, we hire people for their skills. We go through resumes and we interview and look at their credentials, and did they go to Harvard University or Cambridge, or where did they go? And then we hire them, and then 7 months later we fire them for attitude. We don't fire people for skill.
That's so true. That's so true.
Fire them because they can't get along with their coworkers, or they're disrespectful to someone from a different race or a different culture. Not acceptable. Not acceptable. And I think you have to start at not acceptable. And we won't work with a company who would embrace those kinds of ideas. That's not for us. We want to embrace companies that want to have behavior change occur in their organization. Right.
Yeah, and I love what you started with, which is ownership, where the company takes ownership, where the individual takes ownership, when everyone involved in the decision-making process, the execution, takes ownership for how do they show up, the attitude that they have. Then you can create an environment where everyone is valued, where everyone is respected, where everyone is performing at a high level for them, for the company. So I love the word that you picked, ownership. Definitely everyone that is listening, I'm taking note here. Everyone takes notes.
Right.
You wrote Eccentric Entrepreneur. Why did you start with the title Eccentric? Like, what does eccentric mean to you?
Well, I have to confess that the original title was The Lunatic Entrepreneur, and my editor, who was a very brave young woman, said, Jerry, I don't think you want to use the word lunatic. It could denote some negative things and not the right word. And so we together came up with eccentric. And I love that word now more than the word lunatic, even though I do think there is some, in my case at least, some lunacy connected with starting a business. When you're in your 40s, you're getting remarried. My first wife passed away, and so I'm now getting remarried a couple of years later, and I'm gaining 3 more children. So now I have 6 children, all teenagers, getting ready to go to college. To me, that's a lunatic. So that's where the original name came from. But eccentricity,
rightly so.
Yeah,
rightly so.
Rightly so. So eccentricity really means just being a little left of center, right? You're just crazy enough to try something that you've not done. I had never sold anything in my entire life until I became, an entrepreneur, and found out that if you want clients, you better go out and sell something. And so, that was an adventure for me. It was not an easy adventure for me. So I think that if you're willing to take some risk, if you're willing to have courage, even in the face of fear, all of which I talk about in my book, that, you saddle up anyway and you get going, and you get knocked down and you get back up, right? You break your foot, you get back up, you just keep going. And the more, and I learned all of this, Simone, really, I have a disabled son, and he operates at a very, very low intellectual level, very low. It's less than 25 IQ. And what he has accomplished in his life, and he's been living on his own. He lives in a group home, but he's been living, not with me since he was 21 years old. He turned 50 last year. I almost hate to say the words 50, but he is in fact 50, and he goes to work and he does what he's capable of doing. And he's a lovely, wonderful guy that really cares about other people. And he's happy in his life. So has this life that is out, just like any of your children. When you have children, you want them to go off and have a good life. And I frankly, I had lower expectations for him. And he proved me wrong. And he's been an inspiration to me that if he can do all of that
Yeah.
with his functioning level, what can I do with my functioning level? What can I do? And that's part of what drove me to write this book. And I talk about him and I talk about my belated wife and others in the book because they're courageous people, you know, and when you're courageous, you know, you can accomplish anything as long as you don't mind every once in a while a mishap, like breaking your foot. You know, you have a mishap, you have it, you know, and then you get up, dust yourself off, and you keep going. And that's, I think that's really important.
You talked about courage being like gives you your wife, your son, they give you you saw their courage, so he said, you know what, it's time also for me to use this give, like, to get my courage to do
Yeah.
something. What does courage mean to you? What is your definition of courage?
Well, I used part of it, which is saddling up anyway. Get on the horse, get going. If you fall off the horse, get back on the horse. When I was a kid, I rode farm horses, you know, with no saddles, and farm horses are very wide, you know, so you're a little guy and your legs are sticking straight out. You can't get them down on the horse, you know, and I've fallen off of horses, you know, and again, I think you get up and you keep going. How can you be a sustainable business for the long term? You know, what I mean, you know, you're going to have ups and downs. There's no such thing, you know, it's like a jet plane. It does not fly straight, right? Course adjusts all along the way. It's the same thing. And we've had some miserable years in the business. 2008, you know, comes screaming into my head. You know, miserable years. Lost 80% of our business during 2008, and then we all went through COVID. You know, so there was that. and you just, you know, you keep going. You keep going. And if that doesn't work, if people fail in business, but that doesn't mean you won't fail in the next one.
But how do you find that courage to keep going? Because, you know, sometimes you might have the courage to start, but having the courage to keep going, it is another level. And I can say, because like, even with COVID, in one of our companies, fortunately one, the training company GTeX, which is the one that many people know here in the show, that went fine. We managed to transition well. But in
Right.
other company, we lost $250,000 in a week, like this, of contracts, bam. And we worked, and you know how it is with corporate conduct, we're all corporate contracts. So it took about 6 months to a year to get those contracts. So you're actually taking 6 months or a year of work to get those. And as soon as they start, bam, bam, cancel one after the other.
And
So
it doesn't feel good. I mean, besides the financial impact, it just is very deflating when you think about your own psyche and about what happens, right?
so how do you keep the courage to keep going when there are this kind of moments?
Well, you know, I joked about we take the hour off and we quit. You know, I joked about that, but that's real. We have another thing we do called group scream. So we're all remote, you know, we're all on Zoom with each other all of the time. So we're having a discussion and something went wrong and, you know, and we're working on it. We're all frustrated. So we all go outdoors and we scream at the top of our lungs and we all come back in. It's the most ridiculous thing you can imagine. But it takes the pressure off. It resets your, you know, courage is about attitude. You know, it's the little book, the little train book, you know, story about, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. Well, if you think you can, look what Winston Churchill did for England during the Second World War because of his attitude.
Yeah.
Never give up, never give up, never give up. That was one of his speeches, the whole thing. And so, right? I mean, this is what, you know, you have to stay the course. I think for me personally, losing a wife who was only 41 when she passed away, losing or having a disabled son, you know, who has had lots of medical challenges and lots of problems, and watching them, observing them, being so noble,
Mm.
you know, it makes me that way.
Mm.
Makes me say, hey, I can do, if I can have lived through that, I can handle anything that comes my way. And, business is one part of you. And it is like your child. If you're a real entrepreneur, that's how you feel about your business, right? It's a
Yes.
child. Sometimes it's a naughty child. Sometimes it's a good child, but it's a child, right?
Yeah. I love the metaphor that you gave about the child, and the fact that we can look around for inspiration of courage, because sometimes there are those moments where we need external examples, role models. You had, what you went through with your wife and your son. Having those experiences. Now, I'm sure that they shaped a lot of your character, a lot of your decisions, a lot of the way you decided to run your life and business, and the way also you see life
Right.
as well, and you deal with challenges. And I think that the invitation that I have here is for everyone. And I know every time this podcast, I a lot of time I feel that they are very selfish project, this podcast, because I get so much from it. Just like a change in perspective of, okay, where else can I look when you have this moment and say, why am I doing this? And these are all the conversation that actually a lot of people, when you're starting a business, there is excitement, there is this, and then you go in the trenches, and it is a lot, but at the end, at the same time, it is worth it. Like, it is it's difficult to explain.
No, yeah, but you're explaining it beautifully. It's like writing a book. It's the same experience. Writing a book is scary. When I started, I knew nothing about writing books. I had written lots of little articles over the years, but not a book. And I always admired my friends and people I knew that wrote. You got a book written. It's a lot of work. It really is. But and so I joined a group called the Self-Publishing School here in the United States. And well, they're all over the world now. And they taught me how. You can find out anything. You just have to have the courage to go and do it. So I don't know what to do. Well, go find out what to do. Go start digging. And I did research, and that's how I found that organization. And now I know how to write a book. Now, when I write my second book, it's going to be in that way easier. It's more difficult. It's a more difficult book, so it's going to be more difficult to write, as I'm finding. But it's the process, because there's a lot of work, and then you haven't lived until, of course, you've met Amazon, and you have to follow Amazon's rules and their processes to get
Yeah, yeah.
up up on their system. That in itself as a whole is another whole podcast.
I,
It's
I
not
would love
easy.
I would love now to, like, so we talked about courage.
Right.
We talked about entrepreneurship and getting things started. We talked about diversity. We talked about inclusion. One of the things I would love to talk about is purpose, because purpose, I think, it can be like that fire that get things started. But how do you know, or from your experience and also what you wrote in your book, how do you know you found it? Is that purpose, or do you ever know? Like, is it a thing? Well,
Yeah,
let's talk about it.
it's a great question. And first of all, there are methods that we teach our coaching clients, for example, and others. There are methods to discovering your purpose, right? So, and that's more checkbox stuff. We got to be careful with that too, because anybody can write wonderful words down, and then post them somewhere on a plaque in the office and say that's our purpose. Yeah, but if nobody else believes it, it doesn't matter. But I think it comes down to, I worked in private industry for 24 years, 8 different companies, 8 different industries,
Hmm.
and I was very successful. I climbed the ladder, did the whole, and that's part of what I thought. I want to be a vice president. By the time I'm 40, that was young back in those days, right? And when you, but I was never satisfied. Never ever really satisfied. I didn't like some of the ways that senior management in those companies behaved. I just told a story, and I write a little thing called Monday Message from Jerry every week. And I wrote this thing about a leader who I worked for, sadly, who put this video out and said, we're going to have to downsize the business. We're going to cut out some people. About 35% was pretty significant.
Wow.
That same day that he published that video, he took delivery on a brand new Mercedes-Benz automobile publicly in the parking lot of the company. He didn't understand his purpose there. He didn't get it. It comes, though, when I started my business, I worked harder than I had ever worked before for less money and was way happier.
Yeah.
You got to love what you do. That's what purpose is. You got to love what you do. Sit and think for a minute. What am I really passionate about? Now, okay, maybe you're passionate about basketball, but maybe you realize because of your height or because of your age or because of your
ankles,
talent or your weak ankles or whatever, that it's not your game. It's not your game. So I love music, and I played music all my life. And I was a music teacher, owned a music studio, So, and I loved it until I went into the business. Hated the retail business, absolutely hated it.
Yeah.
And pressure it put on my family life. So, what did I most love to do? I loved when other people got it. I loved when I helped other people, to succeed. That's what I love. And this business that I have is a vehicle to that. And so I fit. I fit here. And I could say that of every one of my partners, every single one without hesitation. And our staff feels the same way. They'll do anything.
Yeah.
Anything. One of them was moving over the weekend and she wasn't even going to take any time off to move. I said, no. You have to, focus and concentrate on that. Don't worry about us. We'll get by for a couple of days. Don't worry. Right. But you get the idea, though. So if you passionately love what you do and you can find that, and frankly, this is going to sound like a plug for both of us, because we're in the business of helping people realize their potential. And that is, go get a coach, go get somebody to help you. Somebody you can bounce ideas off of, that's not going to be judgmental, that's going to keep asking you questions until you figure out for yourself what it is.
It is priceless, because
right.
with I have someone that I work with on a personal level, because I need it. I needed to be able to function and I think we all need that external perspective, because we will naturally not go to certain places. Otherwise, we would already reach them. And what someone else does is being able to expand our mind, expand our horizon, holding us accountable to levels that we might not even hold ourselves accountable for.
Absolutely. I have a guy, Weldon Larson, that I've known for years. He was one of my partners. He's sort of, I don't know what stage he's in right now. He's another guy up in my age range. I don't know what, but Weldon's the kind of guy that will say, Jerry, we've talked about this before. You've not taken action. We have another call next week. Do not come back here without you having taken action on this item. And he does it in the kindest way. And then we say a prayer at the end of the, discussion, and away we go. And I'll take it from him. I'll listen to him. I respect him. And I know he has the best interest of my company and myself in his heart. And so there you go. So that's the kind of person, mentor, right? Or coach. Yeah. That's the kind of person, we all need that person, in our lives.
We do. And I'm curious, before we wrap up the topic of purpose, because I got one more question, another question I want to ask you. For you, was it a process of trial and error, finding this business and the way you were fitting in, or did you start a business and okay, this is me?
So I'm going to start with my nickname that everybody that knows me well calls me. They call me Bright Shiny Man. I'm so easily distracted by anything that,
Squirrel.
ooh, new, different, right? So there was no planning, really. I mean, there was some. I'm actually a decent businessman. You
Mhm.
know, I do look at profit and loss statements. I do study the numbers. You know, we have a marketing plan. You know, we didn't stay around for 29 years by chance.
Yeah, yeah.
No. But most of it developed. I really didn't know what I was doing. I was an operations executive in private industry. So I know how to run an organization, a process. I know how to do that. But that doesn't even matter, because when you get in your own business, first of all, generally for most of us, we don't have the same level of resources that we were used to. You know, I remember when my second wife joined my business, and she came out and she's looking all over the office and she says, "Where's the copier? I have some stuff I need to collate and print." And I said, "You see that little box sitting on the desk over there? That's the copier, and it does one at a time." I mean, our whole phone system was our fax machine.
Mhm.
I mean, we didn't have the resources to, to do anything else. And so there was a lot of improvising, and it's okay. I actually think it's healthy
Mhm.
to get in there and struggle a bit. 35 cold calls a day and get phones slammed down my ear and all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff, right? But I think those are great lessons. I really actually, I feel for second generation people sometimes when they come into their parents' business and it's all sitting there and they didn't have the thrill of those days and all of that. They just didn't have it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember because you mentioned before about like your transition from music to human potential, and the fact that what inspired you was when people got it, or when seeing their eyes lit up when they had the aha moment, or and that's for me what got me into the field of speaking, because actually my background was in the catering industry, and any good Italian coming to the UK or another country, what do? You work in restaurants, right? And that was the starting point. But what I loved about the catering industry, and also why I had a really good career there, managed my first Michelin star restaurant when I was 19, so I absolutely loved it. It was making people happy. That's why it wasn't the love of being a waiter or the food. It was the love of people. It was the love of getting someone, coming in after a tough day from the office or wherever they were coming from, or maybe having an argument with their partner and they were coming in frustrated, and then leaving the room happier that they came in. That was my mission every single night. It
I'll bet.
wasn't, and which is very similar to what we do now, which is, when you mentioned about music and business, and this is an invitation for everyone who is listening. If you're, maybe you're struggling to understand what's my purpose. Well, first of all, if you work with someone else, it's gonna massively help you, and I'm sure that Jerry has some great resources around it. But also look at what makes you normally happy, or even in what you're doing. What are the patterns, and how can you recreate them? Uh, Now, you talk about the importance of a few elements, which is also core to your book. You talk about mutual benefit, respect, and trust.
Mhm.
Why do you decide to write about this, and what's the meaning of them?
That has been our values proposition for the whole time we've had the business. And even though we go through strategic planning every year and revisit our vision, mission, values, our purpose, all of that good stuff, that's something that has stayed here all 29 years. And that is because in any relationship, I don't care what kind of a relationship you're in, that your listeners are in, um, don't you need in any relation to have mutual benefit with each other, that you both gain something from that relationship. So, you're building your reputation through your podcasts and other vehicles. I'm building my reputation as an author. I'm building my business reputation. We have mutual benefit
Yeah.
for each other. And you also have to, if it's going to be a sustainable relationship, you have to have respect. And respect does not mean I'll agree with whatever you say. So yeah, you're right, Simone, you're absolutely right. And that's, that's not authentic. That's not real. What's real is that I don't necessarily agree with, what you say, but I respect your right to say it and to feel that way. Now, I might try to influence your thinking about things because that's the work I do, right? But I'm still going to, in the end, respect it, even if you don't come there. And then finally, you can't have a relationship without trust. Think about every relationship in your life, those that have worked well and those that maybe have not worked as well, and what's the problem. I took a young, I took two boys in and finished raising them. They were teenagers. And one of them was on a serious marijuana user, serious. Uh, and he was failing in school and there was all kinds of stuff going on. He was 16. And he said to me once, "You don't trust me." And I said, "Got it. You got it. Exactly right. And we can't have this relationship until I can trust you." And so what does that require? What do we have to do to get there? Because if you can't get there, you can't have the relationship. Happily, we got there. But then he's gone on to be a really successful everything, parent, business person. He's had a very successful life. So and I think that happens because when you in a trust relationship, you can bring anything to that person that you trust. And you can talk about it, even if it's difficult, and that's personal or otherwise. That's why I love Walden Larson, because I can bring things to him. He's going to tell me straight. And I trust what he says.
Tell you something. My business partner and I have been in business for 8.5 years. And, after a couple of years, the honeymoon period, even in business, finishes. And there were many times where we had conversations about, shall we just go separate ways? You're going one way, I'm going the other way, close GTeX. And we had many conversations like this. And also there were moments where in particular, he wasn't happy, like he didn't like anymore GTeX, like what we are doing as the company. So he was just doing it, but his passion wasn't there. Like he loved the corporate space, he loved the consulting in corporate. That's not the events that we were doing. And there is one thing that kept us together, no matter the multiple times that we threatened to punch each other. And I'm glad that never happened, because used to do mixed martial arts, and I never had a fight in my life, so I would have the worst of it. So I'm glad it never happened. But the reason why we kept together for all these years, because we trust each other. I know that he has my best interest at heart, and I've got his best interest at heart. So we sat down and we say, okay, what are we doing? Like, how can we figure this out? And exactly. We started a new company where he could do with the things that he wanted to do. And we said, okay, well, if you need some money from this company, like we always managed to make things work until also the other company was profitable and could stand on its own. But that's because, and now we are still business partner. We own a group of companies. We are shareholders in a group of companies and so on. So our relationship evolved, but it's because the mutual trust. If without that, the easiest solution would have been, you know what, you go your way, I go my way. And that's it.
Absolutely. You just described our leadership team here, and we fight like brothers and sisters. We really get into some conversations. We feel strongly about what we feel.
Yeah.
And in the end, we say, you want to meet up for lunch next week? I mean, it's just like, don't take it so seriously. Let's lighten up. Let's value each other for who we are. I'll go into behavioral science area, which, as I think is one of the underpinnings of our whole business, our whole approach, is the more I understand myself and others, the better off I'm going to be. And so behaviorally, opposites attract. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. So if you're an extrovert, it's likely that your mate is an introvert. Not always true, but generally true.
Yeah.
Generally true. How on earth does that work? Well, let's think about the divorce rate a minute. Maybe it doesn't. But well, that's because mutual benefit, respect, and trust doesn't exist. That's
Yeah.
why a divorce happens, right? But think about that though. Think about, you don't have to be alike in order to work together. In fact, sometimes if everybody's core dominant, there's going to be a lot of fistfights, because strong personalities, right? Strong personalities. And so a lot of time, one of my favorite partners here, well, they all are, but one of my favorite partners is somebody that she's so opposite of me. I mean,
Mm.
our charts are inverted. She listens at such a high level. She's so intuitive,
Mhm.
process oriented. She's all the things that I am not.
Yeah.
I'm all the things that she is not. And together, when we go out together to help a client, it's pretty extraordinary,
Yeah.
because we bring something, each of us, to the play that the other one doesn't have.
I think here the game is finding and making the working dynamic work and understanding how the other person works, and vice versa. Because as you mentioned, my business partner is introverted, my wife is introverted, so they both don't mind being in public situations, and they can do events, but n- not intrinsically they get their energy when they're on their own space. And I'm like, for me, lockdown and not going out and not meeting people, that has been
Oh,
like a prison. Like
oh,
I'm a stage animal. Like, give me a stage, give me people, give me an event with 1,000 people. I'm on a buzz. I'm on a high. So I get what you mean. I get
but
what
the
you mean.
Lord brought you Zoom, and he did
Mhm.
it before COVID.
Yeah.
And so think about that. Think about the fact that we had a way to communicate and see each other, at a time when it would really have been tough on
Yeah.
us extroverts.
I was thinking about what if this happened, like, even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even 10 years ago, the Zoom wasn't there. Or there was first few version of Skype, and 10, 15 years ago, right?
We would have
Uh,
all been shedding ourselves over the systems not working, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to move now to the last part of the interview, which is lifting the veil, where we ask our guests to share, some of the tools or books or things that they have found or discovered recently that is worth sharing. What's that for you, Jerry?
Well, obviously, everybody should read The Eccentric Entrepreneur. It's a 2.5 hour read. Everybody should get a copy off of Amazon in either paperback, an ebook, or audio. Now we just published it in audio in June. It's a great audio book because it's short. Everybody should read that, because there's something in there for everybody, regardless of your level of business success or whatever. It's worth reading. And secondly, one of my partners, Amy Riley out of Chicago, wrote a book very recently. I think she published in June, and it's called The Courage of a Leader. And if you really want to get your arms around courage and what it takes and how do you sustain it, read Amy's book. Also, of course, found on Amazon. In various forms. She is, in fact, you should definitely bring her on your show. How about that for a plug?
Please connect me with her. Please,
You-
please, please, please.
She's a public speaker. She's sparkling. She recently, and I don't know how recently, but won an Ironman. So she did that 141-mile thing.
Damn,
Oh
that's
yeah,
hard.
this
That's
is
hard.
one heck of a woman. This is really a superstar,
Mhm.
and you'll really enjoy her. She's a great. She's typical of the kinds of people that we surround ourselves with. So I really I encourage that. I also would encourage that. Another of our partners, Skip Wilkins, who's part of the senior squad here, is on August 31st. He is doing a really unique webinar, free webinar, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific time here in the US. And Skip's going to talk about what is the methodology for leaders to communicate in a way that gets the kind of results they're trying to get.
Mhm.
And he hasn't given me a title yet for this, but that's the idea.
Yeah.
That's the idea. And he knows more than the rest. He's forgotten, as they say, more than the rest of us will know. He's really a talented guy, fairly new with us, about a year here. So those are my shameless plugs.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So we have the webinar coming up. So we will have the link that we'll put in the show notes. The book, The Courage of a Leader. So make sure you check the show notes. We'll put the links there. But let's talk about the Eccentric Entrepreneur. If someone wants to read it, what is the best way to get it?
Well, and again, it depends on your style. I'm a guy that likes a book in his hand, so here's my copy, right there it is. So I enjoy that. But the ebook version, of course, for those that like to read on the screen, and then really my favorite version that's come out is the audio version. It was done by a very talented guy out of Ohio that narrated it. What a voice he has, amazing voice. And I think you'll really enjoy it. And there are sections in the book called Thoughts to Ponder, which is a place for you to begin to record your thoughts about whatever it is that we're talking about in that particular section. So it's you want to get to your purpose, you want to get to your why. That's a good start. And you can always listen to Simon Sinek and his famous TED Talk on why, right?
I'm definitely gonna get the audiobook. I'm definitely gonna get the audiobook. I prefer audiobooks. I love audiobooks. So that's gonna be my next credit on Audible. That's my next credit on Audible. Go on. Jerry, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. A lot of great nuggets from your journey in entrepreneurship. We talk about purpose, courage, diversity and inclusion. We talk about trust. If you were to summarize or leave a final message to our listeners, what would your final message be?
When we were talking pre-show, two things. Number one, you talked about expert business success. And the way you become an expert is to become a product of your product. And the way you do that is to dedicate yourself to whatever work that you're in. Don't go out and do assessment work like we do and not be certified and not understand. Don't coach unless you understand the precepts of coaching. Be an expert. And while you're at it, find your why, because it's there. It exists in every one of us. Every one of us has so much potential to use that we're missing out on some of the real richness of our lives if we don't dive into that potential. Yeah. And every human being has some. Everybody.
Well, Jerry, thank you for being us on the show. Thank you for your final thoughts. And ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any other episode. And as well, if you like the episode, don't forget to leave us a review where you can go on iTunes, Apple Podcast. I'm so used to say iTunes. When you can go on Apple Podcast and then let us know, what did you enjoy the most? And for reviews are important. It's like the lifeblood of the show. So if you enjoyed this episode, let us know, what did you enjoy the most? Jerry and I will definitely love to know. Having said that, Jerry, thank you again for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Simone. I appreciate it. And take care of that foot.
I will. And ladies and gentlemen, always remember that together we grow exponentially. I'll see you next time. Ciao.